Hey, this is B from Kong's R Us, and today we're gonna take Arcade1Up's Time Crisis and we're gonna install Buy Stuff Store's Retro Shooter Installation Kit to turn this into a crazy multi-cade. Let's go. So first off, you're gonna need a couple of prerequisites, including the Arcade1Up Time Crisis cabinet, which itself was pretty expensive, but if you're able to get it on sale recently and you're tired of playing with the stock guns, you can upgrade it to the Retro Shooter Kit. And next up, you're gonna need the Retro Shooter Pandora's box set. Retails for about $230, the cheapest kit that you can get. Check out this video where I did a whole live unboxing and first impressions on this. So you'll need these two things to get started. Then head over to Buy Stuff Store's website and pick up their Retro Shooter Kit. Shout out to the Buy Stuff Arcades guys that sent me this panel for review, but let's check out their website and all the different options they have for your Retro Shooter integration kit. They have tons of mod options here to upgrade your home arcade products. I absolutely love shopping at the Buy Stuff store, but today we're talking about this Retro Shooter kit. They have 3 different offerings for you. They first came out with their Retro Shooter T2 kit. Lots of different options on here from you to check different deck options, your selector deck, different buttons. So it was a great option for those that wanted to add more value to your Terminator 2. Next up, they had the Buck Hunter integration kit as well. Lots of different options here between the different various Buck Hunter versions, the no riser versions, the Buck Hunter Deluxe versions. So make sure you select your appropriate kit. They will give you the pricing option at the top. And the latest version that they have is the Time Crisis Retro Shooter integration kit. So that's what we're talking about today. The way this whole page works is that you get to select exactly what you want, which is really nice. So if you want to start with your stock deck and that's what you want to use, click on stock deck. You'll see $149 for the stock deck. Next is the selector deck, which is a custom control panel which has 4 buttons, a joystick, a start, a coin, and a player 1. They also have an integrated button and a power button and some volumes on there too. That's their selector deck. Then they have the ultimate deck, because I gave them some feedback. You got to have buttons with 6 buttons for the fighting games on the Pandora box. There's 6 buttons here as well as the USB port. So that's the ultimate deck at $349. I got a version of this selector deck kind of upgraded with the ultimate deck, so I got a pre-production model. So please check which one you want. In addition to that, you have a lot of different things like an encoder update as well, so you can get an upgraded encoder, which is an extra 20 bucks. You have some accessories like some side holsters. You can get some side holsters, which are 20 bucks. You really don't need this one for the Time Crisis cabinet. Pedestal holsters or pedal holders, if you want those, these are nicely printed, and retro console holders as well, so you can get lots of fun stuff there. If you want light up buttons, you can do light up buttons as well for 30 bucks. You have an USB extender port, which already comes with the ultimate one. You have a giant 19-inch screen upgrade, which is another $200 too, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And you have some riser options, so select all your different options there. Again, from here it's really the sky's the limit. I just love that they have this option. You can reset and play around with the website, but definitely check out the Buy Stuff store, see options which are going to work for you. So let's see what you get with this custom ultimate deck with 4 buttons. On the back side, everything is already pre-wired into the deck here. You have 2 3D printed holsters that are really nice, some super thick wood here to replace your entire control panel. All the buttons have already been pre-wired and mapped into a custom Buy Stuff Arcades encoder board here, which is going to recognize this whole function as its own controller. It's going to be integrated with the Pandora's box that comes with the Retro Shooter kit. This is really impressive packaging. All of this came, as you can see, in some really nice packaging out of the box. Everything's pre-wired. And so you have a USB hub here and everything's plugged in and everything's been color coded. So we'll get into the installation in just a second. Additionally to this, you also get a ton of different wires, the different peripherals that you're going to get to be able to power your recoil, your power harness. It's going to go to the HDMI board as well as the IR sensors. You get some extra double-sided tape, some additional screws, and then as well as the HDMI backboard. If you're going to be using the stock Arcade1Up screen, you're going to need this converter board to be able to switch this to be able to accept HDMI on the back of your screen. So this is to mod your stock 17-inch screen. And then we're going to go over some different installation options for the IR sensors. So they've created their own custom IR sensors, so you're not going to be using the ones in the Retro Shooter kit. You're going to be using these 4 IR sensors to put around your stock deck. There's a couple of options for that. We're going to go over that in just a second. So while I have this taken off, I do want to take some time to go over the back side of this control panel and how well Buy Stuff Store put this together. This comes pre-installed. You don't have to put anything in here. These are 3D printed parts for the holsters, which are super nice, matches the guns really nice for the Retro Shooter. This particular deck is their Selector Plus deck with the real IL joystick. So this is a really nice IL joystick with ZF micro switches. If you're looking for Cherry micro switches, they eventually upgraded and changed to ZF, and so they're the same company now. It's just ZF instead of cherry switches. So really nice IO stick here as well. There's 4 buttons that are listed here. These are HAP IO clones. So the buttons themselves still feel pretty good. From the front side, very shiny, great looking clones here, just no branding on them. The micro switch though is, if you can see, is Junyu Tech micro switches. So these are a little bit heavier than what I normally like for micro switches, but for generic games, if you're playing beat 'em ups and things, these are more than fine. If you like a little bit more performance, you could upgrade the joysticks, or sorry, the micro switches, something to like Zippy or those Cherry DX44X's might feel a little bit nicer. This is their custom BiStuff encoder board. So this is a specific encoder that they've designed that has a power as well as a volume switches. These are volume switches up and down on the front side. You also have your player 1, player 2, start, and coins on the back side that I'll go in here. And then again, 4 button inputs. So this is their Selector Plus deck. I think their Selector Plus deck eventually will not have the 4 buttons. It's gonna have this 6 button layout. That's some feedback that I gave to them. And it will have a USB extender port in this top right hand corner as well for you to plug in your player 1, or sorry, extra controllers for multiplayer games. They will do a 4 button option without an IO joystick and no USB, so that'll be kind of like their lower tier deck. So if you want the premium one, you can get the 6 button one. I'll talk about the reasons why you might get the 6 deck one a little bit later. So the first thing you want to decide is how you want to install the IR sensors for the Retro Shooter kit. First off, I'm really happy that BiStuff came up with their own solution. Can you imagine putting on the stock Retro Shooter IR sensors all over your Arcade1Up? This would look freaking terrible, but they actually designed their own tiny round infrared sensors here. They have 4 LEDs on here, as well as some cables in the back and some double-sided tape. So these, if you're gonna keep your stock screen, pretty much are just gonna mount into the top 4 corners here. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then you're going to be able to wire this through. So we're going to go over the installation tutorial on how to do your stock 17-inch screen. Then afterwards, we'll go over how to mount their replacement board. All right, the easiest installation method is to actually have the wires exposed. We're just gonna push this and have a little bit of the wire peeking through from the bottom as well as the top of the bezel. And then we're going to attach the sensor right here and have the wire showing. So if you don't wanna drill into your control panel at all, that's the easiest installation method. We are gonna have to remove the marquee section to get access to the top section. So we'll go ahead and do that now and show you how to install this easy method. So with that big marquee removed, we can easily access the top of the bezel, so we can go ahead and just make a little bit of space here and we can soak the wire through. So just note for this wiring, there are 2 short and 2 long. I'm going to be using the long sides for the top side and then the short ones for the bottom so it reaches a little bit easier. All right, with your 4 wires, now that they're put through the bottom sides of the bezel, all you gotta do is just connect your JST connections into your IR sensors. They should connect pretty easily, and then they should fit into this little slot so they can be nice and flush. And then you have some double-sided tape that you can mount onto your bezel directly. So here is what it would look like when it's all finished. Potentially, you would have one of the bezels with the little wire hanging down on all 4 corners. This is option number 1 for you to mount this with just some wires showing. For those that are a little bit more adventurous and you want to hide your wires, then we are going to drill a hole directly through the stock bezel to be able to soak the wire through the back and then put the sensor here. So as long as you're about less than an inch away from the corner here, there's no marking, so it's going to be a little bit tricky. I'm going to mark it off there. It's about 3/4 of an inch away from the corner of the bezel. And so you're going to have to mark it and play with it. That should hide the hole wherever we put it, and it's going to sit right there. There's probably a much better way to mark this, but I'm a little bit of an amateur, so I'm just gonna go with it, all right? So I drilled my little pilot hole here. I'm gonna start off with the little 1/8 inch drill bit there. So I'm gonna press into the bezel while I do this. That makes sure that I don't get any of the debris in between the bezel and the screen. So hopefully this will go through and I'll get through my NDF without hitting the monitor. Looks like I made it all the way through. Let's check out and see where my pilot hole ended up. So it looks like my pilot hole made it through the backside, just right off the edge of the monitor. So we're gonna keep going right there. Next, we're gonna use a 5/16 drill bit or a 1/4 inch drill bit. Probably 5/16, that's what BiStuff Store recommends. So it looks like I did hit the metal plate on the side of the monitor there. So I'm gonna keep going, but you know, I think we probably should clear this a little bit higher next time, but I'm gonna use my drill bit and see how it keeps going. Since I already made the hole, I committed, let's keep going. All right, so I made it all the way through. You know, you can see that I've cleared just the outside of the monitor right here. And it just kind of drilled through the metal plate that was in the side. So I would definitely be extra careful if you're gonna go this route, maybe drill a little bit higher. I think we should have enough clearance. So I'm gonna make this a little bit wider on both the sides here, just to keep going and make sure I can hide my cable. All right, after you've stuck your wire through, you can go ahead and mount the IR sensor on the back side, just like that. Make sure it fills in nicely through that little gap hole right there. And then you should be able to mount this and hide these wires effectively, very, very simply. Actually, you don't even need to mount it to the backside. You can kind of just have it there and have it mounted perfectly. No wires showing there. So that's a very clean installation. You would just repeat this on the 4 corners. I would get a little bit further out on each corner. That way you can make sure it's clean and not interfering with anything. And if you get some dust inside, you might have to remove this whole thing completely. It might be even safer to take this all out, dust it out, and then you can make sure it's clean for the stock bezel. And the last final option to upgrade your screen is to use the Buy Stuff Store Complete Upgraded 19-inch screen replacement. Comes with an extra plexiglass here too, but the infrared sensors, the IR sensors, are integrated directly into the corners of this bezel itself. This is going to completely replace your 17-inch screen. It comes with a 19-inch BOE screen as well. On the back side, your screen will look a little bit different than mine. They will probably provide you the screen as well as their board already attached to this, and it's going to connect in the exact same way as your stock one. The infrared sensors are here, so we'll talk about mounting this up. This is just a version that I have. Yours may look a little bit like this on the screen here, some video of their version of the Buy Stuff 19-inch upgrade. So 19-inch upgrade, it's going to make a huge difference for the cab. So for the next part of the install, we do have to replace the entire monitor. So if you've already put together your entire cabinet, you do have to remove one of the sides. So this may be a little bit of a pain. If you're buying this cabinet new or maybe on sale and you wanted to do the retro shooter kit, you might consider doing this swap before you put the entire cabinet together. This is going to be a little bit of the butt to take off all these screw hole covers, but you know, for the sake of the mod, we're going to do it. Also, one of the tools that I often use in my collection is this watch knife here. It really helps with prying everything out. It's not very sharp, but it's very, very skinny. It helps with prying things out, buttons, little things, perfect for these screw hole covers. And lastly, we're gonna have to be able to remove the 4 screws that are on the inside with the wet brackets on the back side. All right, so I removed the screws from the back of the monitor, so this whole plate now should be able to lift off carefully. I do want to make sure that this back side is well supported, so watch out for any dowels. Just gonna stick it off to the side like that. If you need to move this back panel, you should be able to get clean access to the monitor so that we can remove it and replace it with our Buy Stuff one. All right, let's make sure we unplug everything else from the monitor. We're also going to unscrew the bottom half of the brackets. All right, make sure to remount the stock brackets onto your 19-inch monitor upgrade, and now let's put this back into the cabinet. All right, now let's have a look at the completed 19-inch upgrade kit. Looks really stunning. The IR sensors integrated into the actual bezel itself makes this super clean. So definitely worth considering if you want to upgrade to the 19-inch screen. It's a little bit pricier to add that upgrade, but it's up to you if you want that larger playfield as well as the integrated IR sensors so you don't have them stuck out there. So check it out. That's definitely an option for folks. Now that we have our monitor installed, we're going to go ahead and remove the stock deck and replace it with this replacement deck. So make sure you unscrew all 4 screws as well as the 2 on the side. Unplug all the cables on the inside, including the pedal on the bottom too. You're going to remove everything from this, place it off to the side. Then we'll take our replacement deck here, all the different wiring and stuff, just kind of soak it through into the back side. We're going to go around the back and make sure that fits in perfectly. This should be a nice, very smug, perfect replacement deck for your Time Crisis cabinet. So we'll just line this up and put it straight down like so. Lastly, there are some holes that we need to puncture on the sides here, just kind of get this in, as well as screwing it on the sides. All right, now we're gonna put the gun into the holsters, but we do need to soak these USB cables and the recoil for both guns. There's these 3D printed plastic plugs here. What we're gonna do is we're going to soak these USB cables and the recoil through the hole first, because it needs to fit through that slot. And then afterwards, we're gonna take this USB kind of cover, make sure that's facing the right direction, facing towards the control panel. You're gonna slip it into the little slits here, and then afterwards just find a little spot and push that in nice and snug, and you'll have a nice clean hole there for the cables. Then that's gonna slot in. Repeat on the blue side. All right, to pause the video, story time and a little bit of Kong hubris here about what's happening right now. So when I first reached out to the Buy Stuff guys and said I was interested in this mod, they said they'd be happy to ship me a control panel to be able to make this tutorial for you. But I was also interested in their 19-inch screen replacements, but they said I'd have to pay for the monitor because it's obviously a cost to them. But me being master modder Kong, I was like, I have a bunch of 19-inch screens that I've saved up over the years, the Dell 19S that you would use to replace your Golden T or something else if I ever got an XL that needed that. So I was like, I can just replace it myself. Just ship me the bezel and I'll be able to make it work. So the Buy Stuff guys trusted me, they did that, and that's why you see this like hodgepodge monitor on the back screen there, and that's the Dell monitor that I was trying to use. It wasn't the one that Buy Stuff was using. It didn't actually work with the original encoder that you see there. I just have it mocked up, and then here's me tying everything down without testing everything fully. My hubris was like, I can really put this all together and not test everything out. It was a dumb mistake. So what ended up happening is the Dell monitor I was using to put in there is a 5.4 1980 by 1024 monitor, but their encoder, the VS display adapter, changes it to 1280 by 960, true 4:3 aspect ratio, and then the bezel hides the extra 64 bezel. So what I ended up with, as you see in the next video, is I had issues with the screen hiding some missing sections on it. And so don't be like B, get the actual monitor from the Buy Stuff guys if you want this upgrade. Otherwise you'll be stuck if you try to ask for things like this and you end up with a non-working kit. So I'm going to redo this video and show you guys exactly how to install it on the Buy Stuff 19-inch replacement monitor. And now that we finished that story out of the way, we've officially installed the formal Buy Stuff 19-inch screen. This is normally how they would send it to you, completely put together already. I did pay the guys for the screen, but everything else they still did provide for me. I wanted to support the guys and do this installation tutorial correctly. So this is the formal BOE monitor that they're going to provide. It has an inverter board, and this is the same converter adapter that they're going to have. If you're going to keep the original monitor, all you're going to need to do is decase the PCB itself, and then you're going to be able to use the LVDS 30-pin connector as well as this power cable and connect it to there too. So I'll do a separate video in the future about keeping everything stock. But for now, let's do the rest of the wiring install for this back cabinet. Okay, so one of the first things you're going to need to do is with these LEDs here, you're going to plug in the LED power cable from this cable here. So there's kind of two long ones and two short ones. So just go ahead and plug in these JST connectors. It's going to hang from here. You are going to have the audio adapter from here coming down. So we're going to get this all connected into the wiring cable kit that they provide. All right, so coming out of the control panel and the bottom side after we've installed this, there are a couple of different cables here that you can see. This first cable here is the marquee power cable. So this yellow cable here says the marquee, and we're gonna plug this in, which the marquee power is hanging down from this side right there. Let's go ahead and plug that in. That might be the tightest connection that you see on this as well. We're gonna be plugging in this red power one on the right-hand side into the stock power supply that comes with your retro shooter kit as well. On this left-hand side, there's this three-way Y splitter that we're going to plug in as well. And then on this other side here, we have a white cable here, which is going to go to the HDMI board for your sound, your audio. And then lastly, this is also to power the speakers from the speaker wire. So let's go ahead and plug in the speakers right here. And then this white cable is going to plug directly into the power cable here. So this is for us to be able to control the volume switch from the control panel itself. All right, so let's take this blue cable. One of the cables that's provided into your kit is this three-way Y splitter here. One of them is going to go to the infrared IR modules, one's going to go to the HDMI board, and then the last one is going to go into the retro shooter cabinet itself to power the Pandora box. So everything is nicely color coded that you can see here. So blue matches to blue. Again, this may look a little bit complicated with all the wiring, but it's gonna make perfect, complete sense in just a second. So our IR module sensor, again, this is what we were plugging in earlier. So this is gonna plug into our infrared IR module sensor there. This orange board is gonna plug directly into the power switch right there on our board, okay? And then lastly, this is gonna plug in our Pandora box. All right, so let's talk about the Pandora box that we're gonna be putting into the back of the kit as well. So this is your standard kind of Android box here that you see in the back. So this is everything that's gonna power your entire cabinet and all the games and things. We're gonna plug our retro shooter arcade guns into this as well. One of the things you potentially could purchase from the Buy Stuff folks is this Pandora box holder kit right here. It's kind of this nice bent plastic foam thing that you can put in here, and then it should have enough little holes there for you to be able to plug everything in. This just kind of slides in, and you have a couple options of where you would want to mount this. If you wanted to mount this ahead of time, there are some screw holes to kind of mount this off to the side of the cabinet. For now, I'm just going to stick it in here in case I want to mount it somewhere. I still have access to all the holes everywhere you can see here, and I might even just eventually stick it right here on this bottom portion there. Okay, so plugging in certain things here, I'm going to plug in the power cable for the retro shooter box directly into here. And let's finish up some of the other connection points into this sensor right here. So there is an HDMI cable that is provided from the retro shooter folks as well. So let's plug in the retro shooter HDMI, get that plugged into the HDMI board. And that's the last thing that goes into the HDMI board there. You should have from the retro shooter guns themselves, the retro shooter cables that come out will have two different cables at the end of each gun. So each gun is going to have a USB port. This USB port is going to plug into the Pandora box itself. And normally you would plug in this extra little plug there into the Pandora box to be able to get the vibration, the feedback from there, but it's not going to be enough to power everything that you see here. So we're going to use a separate kit to plug in the power for the recoil there. So take both USB sticks from each gun. We're going to go ahead and plug that into USB ports 1 and 2. So here you can see it's USB port 1, 2, and 3. So we're just going to plug in one from one gun. Normally I'll do the red gun into player 1. I don't think the USB ports really matter too much, but yeah, I just do the red gun into 1. I'm going to do the blue gun into USB port number 2. Okie doke. And then all the way on this right hand side, originally in the kit, if you saw earlier, there's a USB hub that was provided that's already plugged in with the sound as well as the USB hub that's in the front if you have the Ultimate Deck kit. And this is going to plug into USB number 3 over here. So I know this is getting a little wildly, all the wires and cables, everything's popping in here. Okay, so now the last thing we're going to plug into the Pandora's box right here are the pedals. So there are pedal slots here for player 1 pedal right here, and then player 2 pedal over here. So again, the pedals for the Pandora's box, they're pretty cheap, but you know, they work well. So and they're pretty long enough for you to be able to have them plugged into here and then eventually just coming out the front. So let's just get it plugged in, and I'm going to drop this down to the bottom of the cabinet so I can soak it down out the front. We're going to plug in player number 1, and then we're also going to do player number 2 over here. All right, and now the last thing I was mentioning is about the recoil itself. If you remember, the recoil guns themselves each have their own little adapter coming from the USB cable. So you got to reach down and find where those 2 adapters are from your guns. Again, they might be a little bit all over the place, so I do recommend tying this down. This rat's nest gets me all antsy and things, but these are the 2 cables for the recoil. So this pink slit here, it says recoil in. So we're going to plug this in 1 and 2. and then the other side of this is going to go to an A. So there is this other adapter that they do provide, the Buy Stuff guys. They provide this switch here, which is a recoil switch to be able to turn the recoil off and on. So this is going to plug into this green adapter right here to be able to provide that. And this power switch, we're going to do is we're going to mount this power switch onto the top of the cabinet, and then the other side of this connector is going to go to the power. So the last thing we're going to do is actually plug this into some power. So let me just mount this on the outside, just right there. I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. Now we can plug in our power supply for both this for the recoil, and then also our final power for this. So there's two separate power supplies that we're going to plug into this to get everything powered up. All right, you guys still following me? Okay, so here's the power supplies that come with your retro shooter kit, as well as the stock Arcade1Up cabinet here. I'm going to use the retro shooter kit, which is a 12-volt 5A adapter there. I'm going to plug this one into the power adapter that is coming out from the control panel. So that's the one I'm going to use for that. Plug that in there. So that's 12-volt 5-amp adapter for the control panel. And then the stock Arcade1Up adapter here they provide, this is a 12-volt 3-amp adapter. I know it's really hard to see there, but 12-volt 3-amp should be enough just for the recoil. I want the more powerful amp bridge to go into the control panel because that's powering up the monitor and everything else, and this is just powering up the recoil. So let's plug in that power cable directly into the recoil switch. And again, this wire is probably just going to hang out outside of your cabinet. So once you plug everything in, that's just going to be hanging out on the outside of your cabinet. But now we've powered everything on. Let's test it out before we wire everything up and clean everything up. All right, so I have everything up wired, and now we're going to press the start button right here, which should power up pretty much everything on the screen. You see now we got some power to our game. We see the retro RG game pop up. We got the marquee lit up there. It's all nice and beautiful. I apologize for the lights in the screen. But we do have it. Everything is turned on and ready to roll. We'll just kind of walk through. I have a capture card also plugged in so we can do some highlight demo gameplay and show you guys some of the things that are happening as well. Maybe we'll swap this around so you can see eventually what's happening in the space. And so I do want to just go over really quickly how to navigate the menu using this new ultimate deck here. Once everything is plugged in, you have the ability to use not only the gun, the traditional gun itself has the ability to navigate the menu up and down using this controller as well as selecting, but now you can use the joystick as well as pressing the buttons. So that's a really cool feature to be able to kind of navigate however you want to. If you're further away from the cabinet, you can still use the retro shooter kit, or if you're standing in front of it, you can use the control deck now to be able to use those buttons. So that's a really cool feature to navigate. You do have volume buttons that work as well. So this is the down volume button. So you can already see the volume decreasing. It doesn't remember the volume from the previous time though. So that is kind of a weird little spot there. Well, let's do some demo gameplay so you guys can see how to set up your guns. I definitely highly recommend watching my other big setup video to kind of talk about the guns and setup, but once you have them in here, you probably do want to calibrate them. And so the best way to calibrate them is to jump into a game. Let's jump into Point Blank for a minute because that's one of my favorite games of all time. I'll show you how to calibrate the guns really quickly, and then from there you can make sure that you're accurately working for both player 1 and player 2. So the way to get into the calibration menu, as far as I know, is you got to get to the menu screen. So once you jump straight into a game here, we're going to hold down the start button, and then the start button is going to take us down to this menu here. This is how you exit a game, but we can go to light gun crosshair setting, hit the power button or the A button there, first button here, and it's going to load up the screen for calibrating the screen. So you can skip the trigger to switch, and then from here you can press player 1 for crosshair. So for right now, I'm pretty accurate in terms of the screen here, but let's go ahead and just show you how to calibrate really quickly. So we're going to press the button here. We're going to aim for that center spot right there. We're going to just shoot the 4 targets. There's one on the left corner right there, one in this bottom corner right there, top right corner right there. And then from there, it's going to calculate and save your settings. So from there, once that happens, you should be able to look and see if your crosshair is lined up pretty well. So that's how you save your settings. Press this right button here to exit. Repeat the same thing on the player 2 side too. So you want to be able to do that for both sides. Okay, from there, we're going to exit out, get back to our game. And so from here, go go back to continue, and let's test out some point blank action there. So we'll go ahead and play the game, Point Blank Castle. I guess it's the PS1 version, so unfortunately they don't have the arcade version of the ROM. It's just playing Point Blank 2. Jumping back into this, so let's do versus, press play. It is what it is. It's not the arcade version, but we're playing Point Blank 2. Let's go. Hit the start button over there. This is the player 2 button. We'll just kind of shoot this in the versus mode there. Maybe I should have picked the regular one. It's kind of weird for me not playing the full version. But let's make this full screen right there so you can kind of see the game that I'm playing. It's stretched out there, but it's pulled through right here. Defeat the evil Black Lord. Let's go. Boom, boom. Good. Accuracy is pretty good, not bad. Oh, so many ninjas to shoot. Oh, and it's supposed to be 2 players, so I guess I could make sure I'm double fisting. And right now there's no cursor on the screen for either one. I'm just kind of testing out and make sure that both guns work accordingly. So I think we both failed because we didn't get to the evil lord in the back. The other cool thing about these guns is that it does have the fisheye lens there. So the fisheye lens allows you to be much closer to the screen. I know original ones, you have to be much further back. So I'm shooting really close right now, but I prefer to be a little bit further back when I'm playing the game. So that's Point Blank. Let's go ahead and exit out. So again, to exit out of the game, you're going to hold down the start button on your control panel. So I just held down the start button for a minute, and now I'm going to navigate to exit game. You could also make this a favorite game if you want to. Get back into your main menu as well. So let's switch back to the main screen so you can see some other ways to navigate the menu as well. What you can do if you want to get to the actual shooting games, you can press the start button on your control panel. So I'm pressing the start button on my control panel, and it's going to take you to these playlists where you can kind of make them sorted in alphabetical order, 3-4 players. This is your light gun playlist. So from here, these are all the different light guns you can play. Confidential Mention, Death Crimson, Ninja Assault. There's 95 different games on here that you can play. So most of them are pretty much plug and play. They are actually hacked versions of the games too, for you to be able to jump straight into the menu. So for example, Time Crisis. This is the PlayStation port version of Time Crisis. So yes, unfortunately, you do lose the arcade version of the game. But instead of going to just a straight menu screen, to be able to, the PlayStation logo that pops up, you can actually just jump straight into the game, which is really cool. Just jump straight to the press start button. So it kind of feels arcade-ish. I'm pressing any button to start. Yeah, to get into the ranking mode. So let's go ahead and press any button to start. Let's go. So we're gonna shoot the arcade mode, or I did special mode. Maybe I was, all right, we're shooting far back. Oh, and I gotta grab the pedal too. The pedals are inside, so I just wanna make sure I can still play Time Crisis, right? You're playing a Time Crisis game, gotta make sure you're doing that. Oh, this is interesting. This definitely looks a little bit different than the arcade mode. This is not the starting point. All right, so I gotta hold that button. I can also use the button to be able to use the pedal, it looks like, instead. So, boom. If I don't wanna use the pedal, I can just press the button to like move up or down. Boom. Oh, maybe I press this button. Oh, there it is. I'm pressing the button on this back side there as my pedal. All right. I don't think I've ever played this stage right here. It's like a special version of the stage. That's interesting. So yeah, you don't get the arcade version, but you get the special edition thing, and you don't have to play with the pedal too. You can play with the button. This is actually the same as the Arcade1Up, where you can just play using the button and not have to step on the pedal. Accuracy is good with the 4 sensors. So, the retro shooter itself, it has its issues with that mechanical motorized recoil sound. It's probably the worst part about this, but you kind of get used to it eventually. Boom. All right, so that's Time Crisis. Let's go ahead and exit out of this game, putting down the start button again on the control panel itself. I'm gonna go down to exit game. And now let's go over some of one of the main reasons why you might even get this game or this controller here is to actually use the controller itself for all the other games that are on here. So I mean, like, there's tons of games here. The fighting games with the 4-button layout, I definitely don't recommend playing them, and I can demonstrate a fighting game. But there's also a ton of other, there's like 5,000 games on here that you can play. Console games, PlayStation games, but I think the best thing you're gonna wanna do is do something like shoot 'em up. So here's GigaWing 2, which is a Naomi game. We're gonna go ahead and hit the button here. So this is great for one-player shoot 'em ups and other beat 'em ups and things like that. If you wanna just get some other value out of this, this is now one of the best multi-cades that could be in your collection. Like, you got GigaWing 2 here. You're gonna go ahead and press the start button, press auto fire, just get in there, select your character, and boom, we are playing GigaWing on your Time Crisis. I know, so this is just, yeah, you want to be able to play the shooting games. That's the main reason why you're getting the retro shooter kit. But I mean, like, why not, right? You're playing GigaWing here using your control deck. So this is just, again, a nice, fun, extra value add to the retro shooter box to be able to play these additional games. And especially with the Ultimate Kit, you get the nice IO joystick, you get the nice clone buttons on there. So it feels pretty dang good playing this with you know, the joystick and buttons and sticks there. So I just wanted to demo that. You guys can see the joystick that I'm using. Again, I'm using an HDMI out so you can see. This is GigaWing. This is a Naomi ROM game. Super nice. I would definitely favorite this game here to be able to play if you wanted a nice little shmup game to play. Again, other features on here. The 4-button ultimate deck. I really wish this would have been the 6-button ultimate deck, because that's the only bad thing about playing all the tons of fighting games on here, because there's so much stuff on here. You know, you got your Street Fighters. If I'm playing Street Fighter and I have a 6-button layout, let's just do Street Fighter 2 so you can see what's happening here. I think these player 1 coin buttons and 2 coin buttons are your additional button 5 and 6. So if I'm doing a Hadouken and wanted to do a Fierce Punch, I'd have to press one of these buttons at the top here. So that's just not ideal for this. So that's just one of the negatives here. So let's go ahead and press. All right, let's get in there. Let's do my Honda. Gotta do my E-Honda. All right, let's see where we're at with our buttons. Okay, so I'm going back and forth. That's my big chop. Oh, this button right here is a kick. That's a low punch. It's my bottom left. So the button mapping is really off. So this is low punch, medium punch, high punch, and then, oops, gotta get my buttons. And I think these, is it player 1? Oh, that's the player 2 button. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Now I have player 2. I have to do joystick. I have to use the gun to be able to play player 2. All right, I just did that accidentally. So it's not the player 2 stick. Where are my other 2 buttons? I think, is it this one? Oh, I think I have to do a special code to be able to enable button 5 and 6 to be able to play them. Oh, I forget what the code was. I think it's 1, 2 here. I forget what it is, but there's a way to enable these 2 buttons as button 5 and 6. I'll put it up here on the screen so you guys can see what it looks like. You got to follow the buy stuff code to be able to enable the extra button 5 and 6, but that's just too complicated. I just want the 6-button layout to be able to you know, play fighting games and have them already pre-mapped. But yes, it's pretty cool that you have the option to you know, make these button 5 and 6, but people aren't going to remember that unless you put a sticker up here. So I think I asked the buy stuff guys to put together a sticker as well. Fighting games with the 4-button layout is pretty trash, so don't do it. Don't get the 4-button layout. I highly recommend doing the 6-button one, unless you just want the beat 'em ups. If you're gonna have the 1-player stick here, you gotta have 6 buttons. It's the only way that it makes sense. And I hope for somehow it's already pre-mapped to make it work, because I don't know if once you're in here, you can actually console config, gamepad config. You can change the configurations of your gamepad, but I don't know if it's worth doing, because, you know, you want button mapping sucks. It's one of the worst things I hate about multi-cade. So maybe this isn't the best multi-cade for fighting games, but at least you have the ability to potentially do that if you want to. So, okay, let's go over some final thoughts on this particular mod. All right, so final thoughts about the Retro Shooter Integration Kit from Buy Stuff Store. This is definitely one of the better integration kits that I've seen in my opinion. So the reason why, again, these guns, they match the Time Crisis cabinet perfectly. And yes, while the T2 guns were blue and red on the cabinet that you got, they were originally black in the arcade, but Time Crisis had red and blue or pink guns there. So this really matches the aesthetic of the Time Crisis cabinet. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this integration kit. And I actually really like the way they put this control deck together. This control deck is dang sexy. This looks so clean. The way that they installed the buttons here with the extra power that just powers everything off at once. And so the integration kit itself, I definitely am highly, a fan of the way they put this together. It just looks and acts seamless in terms of integration standpoint. So it does cost a little bit of money to kind of add it to a cabinet that was already expensive in the first place, but the retro shooter kit itself, $230 gets you a lot of value and then extra games for the kit, plus thousands of other games if you want to play multicade. You can even plug in a controller into the player 1 or 2 USB slots and play a player 2 games if you wanted to use a controller or a fight stick. I don't think anybody's going to do that though. This is just for casual play, setting up a ton of extra things. Again, you got the entire Pandora box list of games here for the retro shooter kit now integrated into a nice seamless bezel. And again, one of my favorite things, this 19-inch screen that we're putting together. This looks gorgeous and beautiful to have the 4 LEDs integrated into this so you don't see anything. So yeah, you have options to mount them with the wires exposed or drill holes into the original panel, but this 19-inch screen upgrade is really freaking awesome. So that's it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Check out the Buy Stuff books and store for more details on getting this. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Hopefully subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys next time. Retro shooter. Pew, 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 pew.